everyone, welcome to At Home with Misty. Today we're going to make this adorable Meadow Breeze quilt. It features this great block. Let me show you how to make it. So this quilt is called Meadow Breeze and it is super easy to make. In order to do that, you're going to need one package of 10-inch squares, and I use this beautiful collection called Petal Pixies by Whistler Studios for Wyndham Fabrics. You're also going to need 2 7/8 yards of background. I used snow. I used some accent fabric for the sashing. That's 1 1/3 yards in this beautiful purple color. You need 1 1/4 yards for your border and 5 yards for your backing. I use this beautiful butterfly print with a vertical seam. So let me show you how to make it. So this entire quilt is made up of this adorable block, and to begin with, we're going to select our fabrics for all of the middles. And so we have 20 blocks, and from each 10-inch square, we actually get enough to make 2. So you're going to select 10 squares from your pack that will be your middles of your block. So I have one of those here, and we're going to cut all of them in the exact same way. So to begin with, we are going to cut a 4.5-inch strip from one side. And then I'm going to subcut this into 2 4.5-inch squares. So let's just make sure it's nice and straight. There's 1 and 2. And I am going to go ahead and put this in 2 piles so that I have it ready for, 2 blocks. And so then from this piece, we can come back and we're going to cut 2 2.5-inch strips. There is 1 and 2. And then I like to just stack these up now and turn them, and we're going to subcut these into 2.5-inch squares. So there is 1. And you need 4 of those per block. So I'm adding that to one stack. And then the other. I always like to go ahead and measure. Sometimes the little pinked edges make it a little big, so I'm just going to trim that a little bit off. And so now the middles of our block are ready to go. So up next, you are going to take 1 print square and 1 background square, and this is going to make 1 block. And so I've gone ahead and drawn a line down the middle of my 10-inch square in both directions. And now we're going to take this to the machine because we're going to be using the easy 16 method to make half square triangles. And so what that means is we're going to sew all the way around the outside with a 1/4 inch seam and then a 1/4 inch away from either side of both of these lines. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so just a reminder, I've sewn all the way around the 4 sides. Now I'm going to come back a 1/4 inch from each of those lines that I've drawn, and sew on both sides of them. Flip it around and go back the other way. now we'll do the same thing on this last line. So now we have sewn on all the lines that we need to. And so up first, I like to cut on the lines that I've drawn. And that essentially is going to give me 4 5-inch squares that I have sewn all the way around. See, I have them all loose now. And then we can come back and we're going to cut these corner to corner in both directions. There we go. And I can just keep cutting because you're going to need every single one of these for your block. There we go. And so I'm going to go ahead and press these open because I like to use the block lock for squaring, but if you have a clearly perfect slotted trimmer, I'm going to show you a trick for that at the end as well. So let's go ahead and press a few of these. I like to have my print side up so my seam is rolled back behind that darker fabric. All right, and I have some of these already squared, so let's go ahead and use these and our block lock. All right, so with the block lock, if you have not used this before, the writing, the logo, is always going to go towards the side that your seam is pressed away from. And the size we're looking for is 2.5, because that's what matches our block. And it just kind of anchors into that seam since we've pressed it towards the dark side. And then I like to just flip it around and slide it down. Then it's right on that 2.5-inch line. I want to make sure my corners are going right into the corner of the ruler. And then we can just trim that off. Let me go ahead and do one more for you. So again, the block lock is going to be on my background fabric. Just going to trim. And then I like to just spin this, slide it. There we go. It went a little smoother that time. And square to 2.5. Beautiful. All right, and like I said, I have a few of these ready to go, but I do want to show you this little trick if you have the clearly perfect slotted trimmer, because this works great as well. So if you have that, you don't really have to cut apart your half square triangles. From this point, you can just line up the 2.5-inch line of trimmer A with your stitch line, and you can just make a cut like so. And it just saves you a little step kind of in between. And so there's one, and then you'll just spin your fabric and cut again. And there's plenty that you don't have to worry about cutting through your half square triangles. There you go. And so in this case, you would just press it after. But now, once we have all of our cutting and our squaring done, we can assemble our block. So this block really goes together like a 9 patch. So we're going to make some components in order to sew it together. So up first, we need some background fabric cut. So I have that cut into 2.5-inch squares and 2.5 by 4.5-inch rectangles. And then we can start making our little units that make this block in all of its magic. And so you can see here for this first little unit I'm going to make, we're going to need one of our 2.5-inch print squares that we cut for our centers. And then we're going to take 2 of our half square triangles, and they're going to be pointed towards that print fabric. And then we need one 2.5-inch background square. And we're gonna sew this together like a 4-patch, and we're gonna make 4 exactly like this per block. So let's go ahead and sew these together. And slide this in right behind. Now I'm just going to open it up, make sure it's right, and it is, and so then we can put that together and finish up our little 4-patch. I just want to make sure that my seams nest here in the middle, so I've taken a few stitches, and I'm going to line up my centers and continue on down. Okay, now we can give this a press. Want it to lay nice and flat. There we go. And so like I said, you're going to make 4 units that look exactly like this. And so then for our next one, we are going to take that 2.5 by 4.5 inch background strip, and we are going to place our half square triangles so that they are touching that. So we'll sew 2 of these together and then sew it to our strip, but we want the print side to be touching that background strip. So that's what you're looking for. And same as before, you're going to make 4 little units exactly the same way. Can open that up, add my background strip to this side. And if it helps you to press in between, absolutely you can do that. All right, go ahead and press that as well. All right, so let me gather up all of my units here. I should have 4 like this and 4 like this, and then we also have our center squares that we cut earlier, and now we can assemble our block. So here is our middle. I always like to start with that, and then these little guys come in on the top and bottom and the 2 sides to surround it, and then these, the prints go in towards the middle, just like so. And I absolutely love how it turns out when you sew it together. It gives you this fun Churndash kind of look. So let's take a look at how this goes into the quilt behind me. So you can see here, we just have 4 blocks across by 5 blocks down. And I went ahead and used that pretty purple accent fabric as my sashing. So that's just measured to the size of the block and cut 2.5 inches wide. And then I used a cornerstone, the same color as my background. And I just love how it really sets these blocks off. I finished it with a 5-inch outer border and quilted the whole thing in the loop panto, which I really love. And again, this beautiful butterfly backing. I absolutely love how it turned out. The quilt measures 67 by 81, so it's a great throw size, even twin size. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you next time on At Home. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching At Home. We're so excited to be almost 1 million quilters strong here at Missouri Star. And so if you haven't already joined our family, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of all of our future tutorials, and we'll see you soon.